three key takeaways, and because I have a memory like a sieve, I think of it as DDP. First D, denuclearization. Second D, dialogue, and the last, the P is of course peace. The sanctions. That's a separate issue, and also the cessation of the war games, also a separate issue. Those came up basically during the press conference after the summit. But let me talk about denuclearization first. Big worry, no specifics, no game plan really. How do you get it done? As well as, what about verification? He was pushed on that during the press conference, and finally came out, the president, and said, okay, look, there will be verification. The process is in place. We'll have international inspectors as well as U.S. ones, so you can rest assured there. So that was pretty reassuring for at least some people. The issue, though, Chery, of the cessation of U.S. ROK war games, that took a lot of people by surprise, though.
Exactly. I mean, what South Koreans and Americans have been saying as of June 11th, 2018, was that this is defensive in nature. This has nothing to do with provoking North Korea. And then yesterday we heard from President Trump himself saying this is very much provocative to North Koreans, and also saying that these war games are expensive for the United States. So what kind of message does that send to its a very traditional strategic ally, South Koreans? And of course, what does it mean, of course, in the overall security situation, Asia order in this region? I think that's something that really needs a lot of assessment at this point. And just to take you back to this summit, and of course that review by the North Koreans, I think it's very important to point out here how North Koreans and the state-run media people, I mean, just like a lot of people, thousands of reporters in the media industry have been really keeping themselves busy covering this summit. North Koreans kept themselves very busy too. If you have the text slate full frame, you can pull it up, because North Koreans are framing this KCNA statement that we got this morning. They're talking about step-by-step denuclearization. Now, this is a part that a lot of nuclear experts have been saying is a danger that we should avoid this time around, because if we're going incremental, step-by-step, that would eventually erode a sanctions regime along the way, and that would eventually dilute North Korea's willingness to denuclearize, because it's giving North Koreans some breathing room to do some business, go to China, get some oil, or get the shipments out to the Chinese. So at the end of the day, how is this any different from the deal that we got with the North Koreans back in 2005? That's the question.
Indeed. I mean, a lot of people are saying, look, we may not have seen this movie before, Jeff, but certainly the soundtrack sounds kind of familiar, right? But getting back to the point of sanctions, Chery, what the president actually said and was said in the joint document was, look, at the press conference post the summit, was, look, sanctions, what are there, they stay in place, no change, right? Until we see material and concrete movement in terms of the process of denuclearization. But then the president gave a very interesting interview where he started to spin his response even more.
Exactly. So he said sanctions could come off as long as we're negotiating with the North Koreans, quote, in good faith. And that's what North Koreans are picking up on, actually. And the North Korean state-run media also ran the same line this morning to its people, saying that as long as there is goodwill, which President Trump said there is a lot of in this document that was signed yesterday.
And both sides are still talking.
Then sanctions will come off.
Wow.
So quite a different picture. With this remarkable transition, even I cannot really get my head around this speed, guys.
Indeed. And Jeff, I'm sure you noticed this very shortly after the summit concluded yesterday, shortly after noontime. We're GMT plus 8 here. We had news coming out of China especially saying that, look, you know what, guys, it may be time to rethink this whole sanctions thing on my little brother, North Korea. And we have reports that China, in fact, is very much eager to go to the United Nations and try and get exactly that done. So I think that is probably the next thing to watch out for, whether or not we get a knock on the door, or the UN gets a knock on the door, and we have sanctions officially eased back. But having said that, though, there's a distinction between what's on paper and the actual enforcement of sanctions, as you well know, Jeff. And the enforcer of sanctions, the main enforcer of sanctions on North Korea, is China.
Exactly. So what kind of conversation did Kim Jong-un have in Dalian and in Beijing when he was sitting down with, of course, the Chinese leadership there? Lots of curious voices and at the same time concerned voices out there regarding this result of the summit. Guys, back to you.
Hey everybody, it's Hadley Gamble from our new CNBC Middle East Bureau in Abu Dhabi. Thanks for stopping by. Now to watch more, you can try one of the videos that just popped up on your screen. And don't forget to subscribe.